This is some advice I have for young ladies is that if you want to be a mother, it is really better to start early and to plan your life according to being a mother because there are many financial and relationship ramifications that come from being a mother. And I still believe that raising our children is like the best gift we can get. Like today, I was at the grocery store and there was a mom there with her little baby. He must have been like 9 months old, sitting in the grocery cart. And he was a chubby little baby like mine used to be. And he was such a happy baby. I just went over and peeked at him and said hi. And he just beamed into this huge smile. And then I think I clapped my hands and he started clapping his hands and he was so excited. And every time he clapped his hands, I clapped my hands and he's just beaming so much joy. Babies just beam so much joy. And I just felt so happy with this little baby. And then later again, he saw me again. He turned around, he started clapping his hands and I'm clapping my hands. And that's kind of like what you do with kids because you mimic them. It's a way of like showing them appreciation that you mimic them or they say hi and you go hi, hi. It's just an automatic thing. And I was like, God, kids are so great, but they're also a lot of work and a lot of responsibility. And this obviously was a stay-at-home mom, and I thought about how few women get to be stay-at-home moms. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why it's become a big problem. Because while wages have been flat since the 70s, for adjusted for inflation, wages have not gone up. But in most parts of the country, in the parts of the country where most of the people live, the price of housing has skyrocketed. A house that was $100,000 in 1990 could easily be $900,000 now, while people were making $20 an hour and now making $22 an hour. So I live in Southern California where if you want to buy a townhouse, you need at least $900,000. But there are places in Virginia you can get a house like that for $60,000. Or in the Midwest, a couple $100,000. So the problem is if you live, and I'll tell you what, the people in Southern California, they drive a lot. There's so much traffic, it's so spread out, and people work a lot of hours. They work a lot of hours. They have to. And you don't see that many stay-at-home moms here. I know a lot of people in the Midwest where these young women stay at home because the houses are cheap. The husband is a mechanic and the wife stays home with the baby and everything is great. You can't do that here. You can't do that here. So when you're thinking about, when I was a young wife, I knew that I would stay home with my kids. So when I started working, we didn't buy a house that required both of our incomes. We bought a house that would be just on his income so that when I would stop working, we could afford for me to stay home. So if you want to stay home with your kids, then definitely start younger. Don't wait till you're 30 and need to try for in vitro. Start in your mid-20s, mid or late 20s, late 20s. If you want to be a stay-at-home mom, you don't have to marry a rich guy, but it helps if you live somewhere where the cost of housing isn't so ridiculous. So that means avoiding the East Coast and the West Coast, pretty much. All the way up the West Coast, all of California and Washington and Oregon, the prices are high. Connecticut, New York, Washington, D.C., the big cities, Boston, Chicago, we have had huge housing inflation. So if you want to be a stay-at-home mom, I would suggest having just one car. You can drive a used car. We drove used cars for years. Midwest people are very modest about their cars. California people, everybody's got to have a Prius or a Tesla, that's the big thing, and a new car and all this stuff. Keep your expenses modest. Live in a cheaper area or marry a guy that has a good income. Okay, so that's the financial consideration. Another consideration is having community support and family support, because you can't raise a kid by yourself if you want to be a good parent. They're emotionally very uh, demanding. Unless you have an easy baby. Some babies are so easy you can do anything you want with them and they barely cry, and other babies are very emotionally needy. They're constantly fussing, which can drive you crazy. It's so hard when they're constantly crying. Um, so it's good. It's helpful to have family around, a big family, where you can, they'll just take the baby, and do you have family support? It's really good to have a good relationship with your spouse, because you guys are like the bedrock and the foundation for the family, and it's so important for the mom to get some adult nurturing from her husband. If your husband travels a lot, that's going to be harder. And also, if you're uh, married to someone who doesn't want you to stay at home and who wants you to work and who doesn't value you being a mom, and there are a lot of guys that don't value you being a mom, they want you to work. And that's because so many men are struggling now, especially in these expensive cities, to make a living. They need the woman to work. So that's something to consider. Another thing to consider would be a lot more people now are getting divorced, and if you stop working to stay home with the kids, you're going to have been out of the job market for 5 to 10 years if you wait till they're in kindergarten. And when you do go back into the workforce, that long break is going to decimate your income going back in, if you can even get a job at all. And if you get divorced, then what? A lot of men will hate on you for wanting child alimony. My last video said child support. I meant alimony. There are some men who are actually caring. They're not woman haters. There are a lot of men who are woman haters. They go into marriage like, you know, some woman better do this for me. Women just want to take my money. They're kind of guarded. They're not very kind, and they don't appreciate women, and they're going to hate on you for the alimony that you probably need to get back on your feet and go back to school so you can re-enter the job market and provide for yourself. Some men don't want to help you with that. They hate women. So you kind of want to feel how I would talk to my future husband, how you would feel about if it doesn't work out and we get a divorce. What's the financial compensation for the fact that I stayed home and raised your kids and nobody paid me? I guess ideally, in order to avoid the whole alimony thing, I guess there would ideally be someone paying the mom, so that if she does divorce, for her labor, but our labor isn't paid for and has no value. All the work done with children in our society is devalued. Montessori teachers are so highly trained, I even think they make less than $20 an hour. Childcare is very poorly paid, and it's still very expensive because it's so labor intensive, and it's not valued in our society. And I don't think mothers are valued enough in our society. And I would really, I hope the men listening to this too start to get some appreciation for mothers instead of hating on women as the enemy that's going to take their money. I hear a lot of these comments like, women just take my money, and I know there are really bitchy women who do that. Entitled women who try to get pregnant with guys just to take their money. But there are also women who are moms and they're out of the workforce, and then when they work again, how are they, they can't provide for themselves. So does your husband want you to stay with him even though you hate him, or is there going to be like some kind of an exit strategy? A prenup would be a great way to put that into writing if there's a prenup, because people these days are not willing to stay in relationships that aren't working for them. But the whole childcare thing messes it up if you have children, because to just say that's why the courts offer alimony, because they recognize the value of children. So I would just look for a guy who likes women and who values family life. If you want a family, and not everybody does. And hopefully, ladies, you could also do some work on yourselves if you have an issue with trusting men, honoring men, and being domestic. I think that not enough people are talking about the benefits of working part-time and making a home and cooking. There, it's so nice for everyone to come home and have a family dinner. We used to do family meetings with the kids, family dinners. Everybody sits around and talks about their day, family runs. It's very nice. For me, it was super sweet because I didn't really have a good family life and I always wanted it. So I had it with my own family. And my marriage wasn't the best, but I had a family life and I was happy with that. So, now, when I left my husband, I didn't ask for child support because our youngest was in high school. I didn't ask for alimony. There wasn't really that much money anyway. He's not rich. He had supported me all these years. And I'm like, I'll be damned if I'm going to be some helpless woman getting money from some guy I'm no longer fucking. But there are also women who are just very selfish. They're like, I'm leaving him. He owes me. He owes me. And I think they're just very helpless. I would make sure, if any guys are listening to this, make sure that your woman keeps some job skills or goes to school or something, because whether she wants to divorce you one day or whether you die or become disabled, she's got to have some job skills to support the family. I think anybody could maybe just work 10 or 20 hours a week doing something. And I think it's healthy to get out of the house. But those are just some of my thoughts. I think too many women are waiting too long to get married, and we don't enough talk about the roles of men versus women because the woke culture is so strong. If I were to make a Twitter and write about this on Twitter, my account would probably be taken down for daring to say that men and women are different and have different roles. Today, for example, my trainer told me that women recover much faster after a workout. Like if he's training a man versus a woman needs a shorter rest time between sets, and she can lift every day, but men need more time to recover. I didn't even know that. Like, we're different. We're different. So, if you are thinking of having children, just kind of plan ahead and think what that would look like, knowing that most of the relationship problems that people have come from poor childhoods, and more children need a good childhood, and daycare is not the ideal place for children to go because they were going to feel abandoned and they're not going to get well taken care of. A little baby should be suckling at his mommy's breast. That's where he's comforted, that's where he's happy, and that's the best nourishment for a baby. And so many babies are shuffled off to daycare with a bottle at 6 weeks old, and to me that's child abuse. So if you're a woman who wants children, think about that. Be a nursing mother, go to La Leche League, and find a man who values family life if that's what you want, because a lot of men don't. A lot of people don't want kids. If you want kids, just date men who want kids. That's it, And that's all I just want to say in this video.